Hey, everybody. Welcome to Game Mess Mornings with me, Jeff Grubb, your host from giantbomb.com. Thank you for tuning in. In this episode, we're going to be talking about more games launching this week to glowing reviews. And do we now know what the next game from the God of War team is? It's going to be a good one because we have Jon Martin on the show. Jon, how are you doing?
Doing well, Grubb. I am doing well. It has been an interesting couple of weeks, but there has been a lot of time for video games, and there's been a lot of video games coming out. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I can't stop playing Requiem. You know, I beat it like 2 weekends ago. Played it I played through the first half like 3 or 4 times now. Once on PC. Then I restarted it on Switch again. And yeah, man, that game is just real good. And I kind of can't wait in some ways for some backlash because I just want to see what people have to say who have like different like views from me. I'm like, who are the people who don't like this game? I'm sure they're out there, and it's kind of hard to like post that on social media without sounding sarcastic. Oh, I can't wait for the backlash, but I kind of can't because it just feels like, oh, this is what one of these big budget event games should look, play, and feel like. And who's got the alternate, like the alternating opinion on that, and why? Like, what do you want that's more interesting from big AAA games? In the meantime, I just feel like I'm feasting. Such a good game. Have you been spending any time with it?
Yeah, so I actually got to try it a little bit yesterday. I had so much to do over the weekend, but I got to play through. I think probably the first hour or so in Switch 2 yesterday. It was fun. I got to borrow my friend's copy, and yeah, that game is great. I think it's the first time I've really felt like the character is representing my emotions. Like, I feel like Grace, like, is how most people would actually react in a Resident Evil game, and never happens, mainly because they're like all military ops or they're just so focused on the next thing. But like, yeah, no, Grace shaking, Grace, that intro sequence, just, I don't know. I am excited to play with her. It feels a little bad that they threw, like, the people in that game threw her in that situation, but I don't know, like maybe they knew Leon was coming or something. I haven't gotten pretty far yet, but I got through that first Leon section and that was very fun.
Yeah, it's Resident Evil. There's always more going on. That's how it is. But yeah, I'm really enjoying that game quite a bit. Continues to run great on the Switch, and boy, it looks pretty nuts on a 5090, I gotta say. It took me a second. It was broken a couple of times when I was trying to boot it up. It was crashing, especially when I would try to turn on path tracing, which is like, why am I playing this game if I can't have all these features on? So yeah, eventually got it working, and it's looks incredible. Kind of hard to be like, okay, well, do we want things that look better than this? I don't need it, that's for sure. All right, let's get into things by explaining what we do here. We're Giant Bomb. We're a small team of internet video game doofuses trying to make things work because we are also independent games media out here on our own. We need your help. Go to giantbomb.com/join, become a premium member, and help ensure that we can continue making the stuff that we want to make, that you want us to make. You also get ad-free shows. You get some other goodies. You get Grub Snacks Premium, 9 lives of Mr. Mistopheles. You get the Marry Me Tomodachi, which is going to be happening again this week. You don't want to miss it. It's the best dating show on the internet. Yes. There is a lot of fun and cool stuff happening, and you could be a part of it and ensure that we can keep doing it by going to giantbomb.com/join, become a premium member. Thank you to everybody who has. It means the world to us. If you can't, no worries. Tell a friend about the site. As far as this show goes, most weekdays, I, Jeff Grubb, will help piece your gaming life back together. That includes breaking news and maybe even some of our own original reporting. For all these topics, I'll get the input of a bona fide expert who will make me look smart. If you are watching live on Twitch, welcome. You can always listen to the show later on podcast feeds by searching for Game Mess Mornings or find the RSS feed on giantbomb.com. You can also catch the show later with chapters and timestamps on YouTube. Hello, YouTube. All right, we have a lot to get into, so let's start the morning mess with, well, actually, I have this other one written down here. Let's do this real quick. There was a bunch of stuff popping off about Bloodborne over the weekend, Jon. That kind of just won't go away. The latest is kind of something that I think if people have been listening to this show for years, I've been saying, like, it seems like the key lies with From, was my diplomatic way of saying, like, this is on From, not Sony necessarily. Not that Sony is blameless in this or whatever. People want a Bloodborne remake, remaster, re-release, anything, Jon. And it's not happening right now. I've said that over and over again. Nothing's happening there. Jason Schreier had a report basically saying that Blue Point, did multiple pitches for Bloodborne over the years. The most recent one, Sony was like, we scoped it out. We say yes. The money is there. When we're doing the math, it all looks good. Let's make it happen. And FromSoft came in and said no. And there's some back and forth there. But that is what happened, John. Like that, my understanding is that's how it went down. Now, is it like Sony, it was like a hard no? Well, no, because Bloodborne can't be stopped by From Software if Sony wanted to push ahead without From. But it's complicated. Like, why would a business partner like Sony want to upset a potential, gold mine of working with FromSoft again in the future? They wouldn't want to do that. So it's kind of a one of those situations where, like technically Sony doesn't need to listen to what From Software has to say, but they are probably better off doing so because keeping that respect between the two sides is more important long term. How do you feel about all this?
Yeah, I mean, it is unfortunate that it happened. I mean, Bluepoint, I don't think it should have resulted with Bluepoint being shut down, but at the same time, like, I totally get where they are coming from. It is that business relationship you don't want to sour. Like, Miyazaki and PlayStation were like super tight in the beginning of the PS4 generation. And even, I always forget, but there's some like crazy doll VR game that Miyazaki directed for PSVR that like kind of mentions Bloodborne. So it's clear like they weren't done with exploring that kind of universe. I just think it needs to be in Miyazaki's hands, or at least that's how he sees it. It needs to get like that gold seal of approval. But yeah, it's interesting because like a lot of times when I think about like, hey, why doesn't Dark Souls do a lot more crossovers? Like, why aren't they in Smash? Why in like Soul Calibur or Tekken and something? Why, since it's a Namco Bandai game, like why don't they put those characters in there? And it does seem to be like, we just want to, they do all this work for us. They bring in so much money. Why would we want to upset that?
Yep, exactly. Is the game, and Rich Bad at Games wants me to pronounce this, Daracene? Daracene? I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure. The one that for PSVR, I think is what we're saying. Yeah, so the other side of this is that some companies, some publishers are calling up Sony to ask about maybe acquiring the remnants of Bluepoint at this point. Like there are still people who are there because the studio is closing down in March. And I guess you could bring back those other people. That's early word. Who knows if anything happens with that? But Bluepoint was well respected around the industry for their technical know-how. I'm sure that still has a lot of value, even if Sony couldn't make the math work. I bet other companies will look at it and be like, we can, and we're going to go for it. Had Bluepoint stayed independent, like they would probably just still be taking on contracts and making stuff pretty regularly, and would probably still be operating. So seems like a real shame not to find some landing spot for that studio. Although why Sony didn't consider that in the first place, who knows? All right, let's get into the actual headlines here. Pokemon Pokopia reviews are in. It is at an 88 on OpenCritic. As again, review scores are what they are. They don't matter all that much, but we always point out on this show, it's very hard to get anything in the higher end of the 80s on a site like OpenCritic that's collecting all the reviews. You can only do that if you get stuff like a 9 out of 10 from Reb Valentine at IGN, who writes, Pokemon Pokopia is an enjoyable, personality-packed building simulator set in a surprisingly deep world that is stuffed with fun things for its delightful Ditto protagonist to do and create. As a reminder, this is the Minecraft light crafting life simulation game with like Viva Pinata vibes that takes place in a Pokemon universe where you play as a Ditto who is pretending to be a person who is raising other Pokemon, an abomination, as we all know. Did get 3 stars out of a potential 5, I believe, from Stacy Henley at The Gamer. As ever with Pokemon, there is enough charm to see it through, and the mechanics aren't shallow, even if they're used in aid of the same few tasks over and over again. It's Pokemon's take on a bunch of other villager games it's not quite as good at, but if you persevere, there is a game waiting for you here. You just have to get to the actual game. You have to get the actual game over with first. Interesting. Okay. And then GameSpot has a review that is a 9 out of 10 and says Pokemon Pokopia gives you a massive amount to do and a story that propels you forward while also letting you enjoy the simple pleasure of living among your Pokemon friends and building your perfect community. I feel like I've barely scratched the surface and I can't wait to keep exploring. I'll get Squirtle back yet. Pretty good reviews. First thing I want to ask you though, John, is how do you say Pokopia?
Pokopia.
Yeah, right. It's like dystopia, right?
Oh, is there a discourse around the
I think
pronunciation?
there might be a discourse out here. I don't think anyone in chat. I think we're getting it right. Is the thing. I think it's got to be
Yeah.
Pokopia like dystopia. So, but I have seen some other takes on it. I'm like, ooh, okay, no, I don't think so. All
You're
right,
saying
then,
it on the show. It's correct. That this is the end all be all. This is the authority.
Right, exactly.
Yes.
Write it in the Bible. Bible 2. This is how you say Pokopia. John, how are you feeling about this game? However.
Yeah, it's weird because it like really did kind of come very quickly around where it kind of was this silly thing. We were waiting for like a bigger Pokemon Switch 2 game. And then like, yeah, the groundswell really did start with the Dragon Quest Builder predictions. I am honestly shocked. I mean, I'm shocked that as far as I know, I think this is the highest rated Pokemon game ever. Like I was looking into it and I really thought some of those earlier ones would have ranked higher. Like Ruby and Sapphire is like an 82. I think Pokemon X or something back in like 2013 was the next highest. But yeah, I mean, it really does everything I would want out of this kind of game. I lost so many hours last year to Fantasy Life I, kind of a similar Animal Crossing-ish world where you are kind of improving your island, your land, but doing a whole bunch of other stuff. And this with the blend of Pokemon definitely seems like it's fantastic for me. I really am curious about a couple of different things. So, but like for $70, it is interesting, but it seems like there's a lot more meat here than even I was expecting. Like there's a story, there's a campaign. It really does feel like this was probably going to be the anniversary game, and it's where they didn't like market it a little bit harder in the beginning, but I think people came around to it.
Yeah, I it does feel like I can begin to understand a little bit better why Nintendo was like, hey, let's just do a Nintendo Switch 2 version of Animal Crossing for the early part of this year, and then give this Pokopia game a chance to really breathe, because there's a strong chance here that this has a breakout moment for a Pokemon spinoff. Obviously, Pokemon sells incredibly well for the core games and the spinoffs, but this feels like it could be something like an Animal Crossing where it just takes off and a lot of people jump in on it, and it builds up a culture of its own. And next thing we know, it's another 25 million selling game for Nintendo and the Pokemon Company. I guess I like what I hear about this game. It sounds very cool. I'm going to try to force us over here to do a multiplayer stream, because it sounds like it's got strong online multiplayer features, and I think that could be a lot of fun. So yeah, I'm getting ready to play this, looking forward to it. It launches later this week, right? Where it's on the
5th.
The 5th, right?
Yeah.
So Thursday. Got it. All right, looking forward to it. We'll see. More reviews came in as well for Esoteric Ebb, which is one I hadn't heard about until I saw the reviews. It also has an 88 on OpenCritic. Wow. It is my understanding like a computer RPG, sort of like Disco Elysium, but they're trying to do even more of the, hey, this is what it feels like to play a tabletop RPG. And that's definitely something we've seen more and more games going, like trying to capture. And many have gotten pretty close. Sounds like this one is right there in that pantheon of like, hey, they are nailing what they're going for. Got a 9 out of 10 from Shane Limbaugh at DualShockers. No relation. I won't be honest. I saw that. I'm like, let me just double check and make sure this is not Rush Limbaugh's grandson. I was very relieved to find out Rush Limbaugh did not have any children, everybody. That was a great sentence to read. Yes. Yeah, all right, something. 9 out of 10 from Shane at DualShockers. Sorry, Shane. While it doesn't offer up information on completing quests, it does give you the freedom to explore the world and characters. If you're a fan of D&D looking for something unique with some solid writing and good humor, then you won't find a better game to play than Esoteric Ebb. Got a 9 out of 10 from Matt Sowinski at Console Creatures. Esoteric Ebb is incredible, saturated with fantastic writing and memorable characters. Its systems blend CRPG and TTRPG in clever ways. And then 4.5 stars from 3-2 Play. The Disco Elysium-esque gameplay of Esoteric Ebb provides a blank canvas for a colorful 2D graphic style that feels a bit like an interactive comic and often creates an interesting balancing act between style and content. I have very little bad to say about Esoteric Ebb. The only thing I still find difficult, even after many hours of gameplay, is navigating the different areas and moving from one to another, as well as the questing tree, which is a bit rough in use while looking gorgeous. But those are really just minor things. Recommending such a story-driven game without spoilers is always somewhat impossible, so to put it mildly, the visuals are awesome, the music is great, and the story is absolutely wild. Esoteric Ebb is really good. Okay, I'm sold. I want to see, at least want to see someone playing this game and like get like, talk to some people I trust and see what they think. Like, I would love to have Austin Walker's take on this. Hey, what, like, you're the guy that I think of when I think about the crossover between video games and tabletop RPGs. What do you think? And then, for someone like me who has an interest in those things, I am like, I can imagine myself having fun doing both of those things, and I often do. But I'm not like in that space, so I would come at it with a critical eye. I bet for me this is going to hit pretty hard. How about you? You have any interest in Esoteric Ebb?
Yeah, not a game I had ever heard of until I saw it on the docket for today, but it does look gorgeous. For these kinds of games, I'm always just so interested to see like every single kind of dialogue option. So I never beat these kinds of games, but I just like playing like characters I feel like could exist in the world, which honestly in and of itself can sell me on a game. And yeah, like when I think of these like kind of tabletop games, or trying to translate a tabletop games like a Sleeper Citizen or a Disco Elysium or something like that, it really does come down to the art and how much I want to exist in that world. Disco Elysium makes me kind of sad. So yeah, like Sleeper Citizen, and this looks kind of perfect for me. And there's not really much else to say. It's just I'm so fascinated by like kind of the Mike Mignola like kind of pop art kind of deal. I guess more colorful than that, but
I know what you mean. Yeah, it's still, it has a strong look, and I'm definitely curious to try this out, or like I said, hear what some experts have to say. All right, excuse me. Let's get to this next one as we get into some news stories now. Nintendo Indie World March 3rd is announced. It's happening March 3rd. It'll be roughly 15 minutes of news and updates on indie games coming to Nintendo Switch 2 and Nintendo Switch. It starts tomorrow at 6 a.m. Pacific time, 9 a.m. Eastern. Jay, why don't you just sleep through that one? I got that. We'll try to talk over it. I'm just seeing this now, or I saw it right before the show started. So we'll figure it out and probably do a talk over. But yeah, 15 minutes. This could be the kind of thing where it's like all new stuff we hadn't heard about before, or maybe an update to like Silk Song. It's like, oh, here's an update in Silk Song that's coming soonish. We'll tell you about it here. That could happen, but that seems unlikely. It's much more likely that we're getting a bunch of games we just never heard about from a bunch of studios that want to put out stuff on Nintendo. And I always look forward to these. Often some of my favorite games come out of Nintendo Indie Worlds. How about you?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And especially like the timing of this is like right before PAX East for me. So I'm excited to check some of these games out that are going to be there. There's always the games that you kind of hope are here. Like I do hope we hear more about like, I guess Slay the Spire 2 isn't confirmed, and I think it's launching in early access, but that would be great. I would love so many different games. Mina the Hollower, although that game kind of feels like it's a little bit bigger than like a 15-minute kind of showcase.
Right. That's definitely where we are with a lot of these. Yeah. But like a lot of the ones that we would name drop almost feel too big for Indie Worlds at this point.
Yeah. Those would be cool. I'd love a replaced. I'd love an Abyss X Zero or something. But I mean, I'm honestly just looking forward to the different voices around the world, which I think has kind of been like a theming that they've done recently. It is like so diverse of the viewpoints that are getting reflected in these kind of showcases. So even though it's only 15 minutes, I think we'll still at least have 3 to 4 games that really do just like kind of speak to all of us.
Yeah, same. And it's like, there's always a chance that like we get like a golf story or something. It's like, oh yeah, we're early on in the Switch 2. There's still some space for one of these tiny games to blow up and become sort of a signature game for the Switch 2. And Nintendo hasn't like given themselves to that concept, but they've embraced it somewhat. And with Hades, and then really supporting Hades 2 and a handful of other games that are kind of in that realm for them, where they're like, oh, we see that this is selling very well on the Switch. We want to sort of take it under our wing. And they, at the very least, sort of try to make a fertile ground for that to happen again by showing stuff off in an indie world or what have you. All right, moving right along. Here's one. Santa Monica Studio is working on a new series in the God of War universe, reports suggest. This is from Haley Williams at GameSpot. Rumors about the next project helmed by Santa Monica Studios' Cory Barlog have been making the rounds since 2021, but a fresh influx of information suggests the project will be a new franchise set within the God of War universe. In a LinkedIn post that has since been deleted, but not before it was screenshotted and posted to the Reset Era forums, a former senior writer at Santa Monica said that they had helped shape the narrative vision and creative direction at Sony Santa Monica for a new franchise within the God of War universe. That's how they put it. The LinkedIn link has been backed up by other reliable sources and seems to fit with prior rumors about the project. Industry insider Nate the Hate posted some information to Twitter saying he's heard that the game will be set in the God of War universe and will feature Faye as its protagonist. He also said that the game will have more of a focus on action than those God of War Norse games. Nate added that he expects the game to be announced this year, with a release following in the first half of next year. This timeline would fit with comments made by Kratos voice actor Christopher Judge, who recently said that Santa Monica Studio would be revealing its next game this summer. The rumors also make sense of comments made by prominent industry reporter Jason Schreier, who said that Santa Monica's next game is not a new IP, but might feel like one. Schreier also recently reported that Sony wants to expand the God of War franchise into an MCU-like universe with sequels and spinoffs. All right. This is one of those ones where, like, I bet when we see this, everything we're hearing makes sense. Where it's like, oh, this looks like a completely different game, but I see in these small little instances how it wraps back into a larger God of War lore. But the idea here of like doing an MCU sounds, I don't know, very like it sounds stupid. It sounds stupid, but I think for someone who's actually like working on this, what they mean is we want to establish these things that like pay off if you are paying a lot of attention. But like those early MCU movies where it's like they obviously could all just stand on their own. And this game, I expect them to be like, it can stand on its own. You can come to it completely fresh. You don't have to have played the other God of War games. But if you have, there's things there for you. And then down the line, they're probably imagining having them all intertwine into big stories or whatever.
Super games.
But okay. On its face, as we know about it now, which is not much, but enough to kind of talk about it. How do you feel about this?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think the talk for a while is that it was going to be more of a science fiction game, but like at the same time, as soon as we learned about Intergalactic, it would be like, well, are they moving from just like kind of old school or more so just like modern day to futuristic stuff? So I think it is kind of cool that it is going to be within the realm or I guess flavor of fantasy to a certain extent. It's not necessarily the direction I would have expected to go, especially because I feel like the God of War brand has been around for such a long time and it now is known to redefine itself, whether it's a good redefinition with like Norse games or a bad redefinition with that Metroidvania game that just came out. It's interesting, right? Because I think a lot of us were expecting some sort of direction to go with maybe an Atreus game or something like a smaller game. So doing it with Faye, who is Kratos' wife, I believe,
yes.
played by Deborah Ann Wolfe, that's certainly interesting because I mean, like, if anyone is interested in God of War 2018, they know that she's dead. Like, that's the first scene of the entire game. So where they would go with this is interesting. I don't know where it would go, if it is literally in Valhalla, if she's just isekai'd into another location or whatever.
I mean, it could be a prequel, right? Because she was always a warrior.
Sure.
A warrior is my understanding. But I mean, it's one of these games. If they want to like have these things wrap into one another, you're right. They probably want to take it into the future. She could easily be fighting her way out of whatever. Like, she's in Valhalla, and then she gets taken down into Hades, whatever the version of that is in Norse mythology. Yeah, it is just hell with one L, right?
One L, yes.
Hell with one L. Yeah, okay. And so they would she could be fighting out of there, and Kratos like it starts off the thing being like, I know she's in there, but I can't help her. I'm not allowed in there. And it's like, okay, well, let's just watch her save herself. Look, I am not a huge fan of the 2018 God of War game. I thought it was fun to play for a handful of hours, and then I kind of like, I get it. That's not a negative sort of review. It's just me being like, oh, I get it. I don't need to play this whole thing to get the rest of it. So I'm not the right person to come here and be like, oh, this sounds cool. Is it going to be like a character action game? Is it going to play more like the original God of War games? That would be.
I'm hoping that.
I think. Me too. I'm hoping for that. That sounds pretty cool. They could do some really cool stuff with that. Bring back Deborah Ann Wool. She will give herself to it, like she does. Like she's a great like ambassador for like tabletop role playing games. I bet she would like take this character under her wing, and be like, yeah, let's grow it and do more with it. I have seen a lot of people be like, who asked for this? Saw some of it in chat. Saw some of it, around this morning. Some of it is definitely coming from a place of like, who's asking for this? And then some of it is, oh, great. A God of War game with a woman at the helm, and I haven't seen any of that in chat. To be clear, of course.
Thank God. Yeah,
it is. Look, we could talk. Let's talk about the reasonable side of it. Fuck the chuds.
Yes.
People were like, "Hey, no, actually, who asked for this?" Kratos is basically PlayStation's mascot. Do you think a God of War game can work without Kratos?
Yeah, I do. Because at the end of the day, like, when you think, obviously he is an iconic character in those original 3 games. I don't think anyone came to those games for Kratos. Like, I think it was for the gameplay. Like, he was like one of the most unlikable characters because he's just screaming and murdering, and like, I love to play those games, but I wouldn't necessarily, I came to them for like him. The story by itself, like, I think the stories are what elevate that character. And even in 2018, like, seeing the growth of Kratos into an actual character, I think was the best part about that early game until you got to just all the crazy powers and boss fights and the spectacle. But I think it can work alone, especially if it is. I think one of my biggest criticisms for those like 2 new games was the RPG mechanics. Like, it was fun. I loved having a skill tree, but after a while, it's like you're in menus far more than you should be in a game where you do just want to like tear apart the environment. Yeah, I think there's absolutely a niche. There hasn't been, like, Devil May Cry takes breaks for like 10 years. I don't see why we couldn't have another badass action game just coming out.
Right, and this is not the Ragnarok team. So I think there's a lot of people like, oh, great, so we're not going to get the next Kratos game until whenever. Well, probably not, because the games take forever to make anyhow. But we always were under the assumption that the Ragnarok team was going to sort of continue that series forward in whatever way. And Barlog was off working on the sci-fi game. Is what Yeah, you're right. The rumors were early on, although that was always just like people just talking, I guess. And then it's like, okay, so yeah, they're doing something else. And now to hear that it's like, oh no, it still is a God of War game, and then to hear, well, not really. It's going to feel like a new franchise. That's how everyone keeps putting it, despite the fact that it takes place in this universe. And it's like, okay, it's going to be like a new superhero getting written by Marvel. Eventually, they'll end up in the Avengers or whatever. But for now, they're getting their own run. And it's like, okay, I can kind of see that being like something that makes it easier to get a lot of money to make a game under a Sony right now that is, just like every company in this space, very risk averse. We'll see it soon, it sounds like. And I bet most people will be happier if they just wait until they see it before they start judging it. So let's just wait and see. All right, let's take a break. Plenty of more headlines to get into, including, hey, what's PlayStation 5 have happening here pretty soon? And people are accidentally resetting their Pokemon LeafGreen and FireRed progress. We'll talk about all of that after these messages. If you want to skip out on these ads, you could do so. Go to giantbomb.com/join. There you can find ad-free versions of the audio and video shows. In the meantime, we will be right back. We're back. It's Game Mess Mornings. Jeff Grubb, Jon Martin. Let's do this. Starfield on PS5 release date confirmed, quote unquote, by reliable insider. This is from Chris Scullion at VGC. The release date of the much rumored PlayStation 5 version of Starfield has been given its strongest backing yet from a reliable insider. Last month, Polish site ppe.pl cited its insider Grashadari, who it says handled physical game sales in Europe and previously correctly leaked information on the release date of Oblivion remastered physical copies, the Switch 2 port of Sonic Racing Crossworlds, and the PS5 port of Microsoft Flight Simulator. The report claimed that the PS5 version of Starfield is expected to get a physical release on April 7th, but some players have noted that while Grashadari has been right with some things in the past, they've been equally wrong with other things. Now, however, Deal Labs writer Bill Kuhn, who has a far longer and more accurate track record of consistently leaking software release dates, they seem to have access to some retail backend or something.
Exactly.
Has also stated that Starfield will get released physically on PlayStation 5 on April 7th, lending more credibility to the claim. Okay, yeah. Starfield is one of those ones where I just think most people have put it far behind them, but there are probably a lot of people on PlayStation who have not played the game and never had that relationship with it because they're like, whatever. It's not on my system. I'm not even going to think about it. Do you think that they've done enough, that they have a chance to sort of recapture excitement about this game? I mean, it's never going to be the game that everyone thought it could be if it hit on all quadrants or whatever. Right. But could it at least sort of like have a second wind here?
Yeah, I do think so. I mean, granted, it just being a Bethesda game, like the first Bethesda game that was been on a PlayStation console or I guess Bethesda game software, like this is the first game since Fallout 4 that's released on the PlayStation console. So I think despite what everyone hears, they do want to see it for themselves. If they do release it as more of a bargain game, in terms of like it would cost like 60 instead of 70 because it has been out for so long, I think that would do wonders. But yeah, there's always going to be an audience for these kinds of games. A lot of people just buy it off the name alone. I think so. But I don't think it's going to change anyone's perspective, no matter what the DLC they have in the future is going to do, no matter that. And I think they've kind of like, they're fine with that at this point. They are just kind of shifting focus towards Elder Scrolls 6 that, that's going to happen. Yeah.
You mentioned it, the pricing. Bilbo Kuhn reports the standard edition is going to cost 50 euros or 45 pounds. And the premium edition is more than that. But this is significantly lower than the price of the game on the Xbox currently, where the standard edition is 80 euros and 70 pounds. So that's 30 euros, right? So I bet the price drops on Xbox by the time this happens. And if this price is even, like this price feels like there could be more wiggle room than the date at this point. I believe April 7th, this date or this price could still be placeholder, but Bilbo Kuhn usually is pretty good about checking these things and knowing. So we'll see. I guess it should be less. It shouldn't cost 80 euros for this game. They would be better off if they positioned it at a slightly lower price, like you were saying. That feels like a gesture toward regaining some goodwill for Starfield.
Yeah. And I think you need that olive branch to unload people, especially people who were kind of swearing it off because it was that Xbox exclusive. Like it was going to change the game and it was stolen from them. There's definitely people who still have the narrative in their head, but I don't think many of those people are actually listening to this podcast.
Exactly. All right, let's hit this breaking news. As of today, Retroid has announced an unfortunate $15 increase in the Retroid Pocket 6. That is effective as of today. This will raise the device's price from $229 to $244. This is, quote, due to significant changes in the global memory market, including ongoing shortages and sharply rising costs for both RAM and storage. They are discontinuing the 12 gigabyte model. They just aren't going to make that anymore. And it's always like, man, that's rough, because one of the ways you think that these companies want to get around this is actually keep the higher end models that have more memory and then just charge a lot more for those. This sounds like that's not feasible. They just will not be able to keep up close to demand if they keep that 12 gigabyte model around and instead just raise the price of the lower one. So it means the profit margin's always lower on these lower systems usually. So they're probably even like maybe just barely making up for that with this increase in price, and then maybe not. This is rough because it's like we had mostly seen these Chinese handhelds, which I love, kind of evade the RAM apocalypse price increases so far. But here they are. Obviously this is just the first domino. More things are going to go up in price because of this, and even the Chinese handhelds can't avoid it. despite their proximity and relationships to the supply chain, which is one of the reasons these devices are so inexpensive in the first place. How are you feeling about prices and hardware and all that right now in the beginning of 2026?
Yeah, it's kind of scary. I mean, like last week, the story was even that AYN Thor was going up. Like I had a batch 3 pre-order, and now batch 4 has gone up a certain amount of money. Yep. They haven't straight up removed a model, which that's a lot more damning than we're just gonna raise the price. Maybe they had like a bigger stockpile of RAM, but yeah, it is stressful. It's very weird because it's not only going to be PC gaming, which I think a lot of people are thinking. Like, I think that is the mindset for some people who aren't paying as close attention. But no, this is going to come for everything. It's going to be really difficult, especially for these more niche products to get their foot in the door and get those like pieces of memory that they're going to need to make them. This is, I mean, I don't know what I'm very new to this retro console like Chinese handheld scene. So is the Retroid Pocket like the big dog in the space?
It's one of the ones. There's like a lot of lesser known brands. I don't want to say no name brands, but lesser known brands. Retroid has a long history. It was an early favorite. Continues to be one of the better ones. Like they aren't the high end. That is AYN. But Retroid has really good offerings, especially for the price point. And every Retroid I've owned, I've really, really, really liked. So this is noticeable because it's them. They have tried to have competitive prices, and it's always been super, like shockingly low. And now, AYN. Now this, it's like, oh, it's coming for everybody. There is no avoiding this, and we knew that, but here it is. All right. Back on to the stories as written. Bungie promises updates to Marathon's PvP, med, and ammo economy, queue options, UI, and more. This is from Ben Lyons at Game Reactor. The game popped off. It had a big test over the weekend. The server slam. And on Friday, kind of really did very well. 150-ish thousand concurrents on Steam. Again, a metric that is public, and that's why we use it. It's not a perfect metric, but it's the one we use because we have it. That's pretty good. It sort of like fell off after that. There is some people being like, oh, here it is, evidence that the game's bounce rate is really bad. People are playing it and not coming back to it, and it didn't have a higher peak over the weekend. But there's some excuses for that. Like a lot of people were having trouble getting the game to launch because of the anti-cheat was blocking the game, and there was a lot of issues with that. And really, there's this list of problems that were the most common complaints about the game that Bungie is promising to address very quickly. While the very nature of the server slam for Marathon was for Bungie to stress test the game and ensure it has a smooth full debut later this week, the influx of players testing the game also allows the Destiny 2 developer to gather feedback and additional thoughts to see how the community is resonating with the project. To this end, now a full server slam feedback article has been shared, which comments on the areas that Bungie will be looking to improve and make changes, and it is those issues. People really don't like the UI. A lot of people were struggling to find ammo and felt like, okay, this is like, I don't feel like I have a lot of chance to survive here. I guess same with med, with healing items and the PvP. I actually don't know what the problem is. Beyond this, the PvP and the low time to kill values are on Bungie's radar. So, okay, that's the problem people had with it. That's right. I think that the article starts off correctly, John, where it's like they do this to test the server capacity. That's number one in importance. But now you can take all this feedback and act on it as quickly as possible. Probably can't do much about like the UI before this game launches in less than a week. But you can at least make gestures toward, hey, we hear you and we are going to improve things. So the people that have some positive feelings about the game early on don't feel discouraged and can be like, okay, the things that I don't like are getting addressed here pretty soon. Marathon, kind of like the winds blow back and forth on this one. It's, early on, everyone's like, this is dog shit. And then some tests came out and people were like, oh, no, it's much better now. They had some problems with the art where they were just stealing it. Then they seemed to fix that by paying the people and kind of addressing that. So, okay, we're back to at least square one on that. And then, this recent test, so, okay, people do seem to like it, but also some people are a little bit muted about it. Gee, I do not know where this one is going to land. Right now, I am so confused about how Marathon is going to do. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, just talking on this server slam alone, it's just a weird situation where it is so close to the launch of the game that it's going to be kind of hard to reframe the actual launch day
Oh
as a
yeah.
launch. And obviously, like the best part about this, like we were talking about, is like a potential hot fix patch that happens, if not on day one, then maybe like the next day or like Saturday or Sunday morning. But yeah, I mean, it's weird because it's a fight for the word of mouth. And I know the gameplay feels good. I've played it, and I know a lot of people who actually did do this server slam do like how it feels, but um, I don't know. It's like the messaging is kind of laying the tracks like miles ahead of where they actually are on the train. I know Bungie has a uphill battle, and I think they can do it on name recognition, but yeah, I don't know, like for metrics and like for PlayStation, what is that threshold of success? Like do they need to hit Arc Raiders numbers and like peak Arc Raiders numbers? PlayStation definitely assesses things at the absolute maximum of what performance could be for one of their products. So yeah, it's interesting. They're gonna stick to it because it's Bungie, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's and Bungie was working on this before Sony was even in the picture. They set out like what this game needed to be a long time ago, so the expectations are sort of built in. Because the expectations are based on how many people work at Bungie and are working on this game, and it was a lot for a very long time, and they've had some cuts, but this was a big project that had to have, like, it probably needs to do about as well as Destiny did. I bet that is
Yeah.
the sort of expectation, and that's not just at Sony, that is at Bungie itself. Can it do that? I don't know. We'll see. Like I said, I really cannot put this on a sort of scale right now, as we are a week out from it. But it does seem like it has at least a chance. So we'll see. The launch is coming. It's $40. Let's see how many people, after getting a chance to play it for free, are lining up to actually drop that money to play the game. All right, there is a new Windows gaming handheld that is at least neat in concept. It's not confirmed as a product yet. The Lenovo Legion Go Fold. This is from Antonio G. Di Benedetto at, I want to say, The Verge. I didn't write it down here. I think that's The Verge. The Lenovo Legion Go Fold concept is a Windows gaming handheld built around a foldable POLED display that expands from 7.7 inches to 11.6 inches, offering multiple play modes and even a mini laptop configuration. So this thing is weird. It is as a like laptop screen, which it also can be. It's an 11.6 inch screen. Then you could undock it and fold it in half backwards, so the screen is on the front and the back, and that's when it becomes a 7.7 inch thing. And then you can tap in the controllers, which disconnect just like on the original Lenovo Legion Go, and just like on a Switch, and then play it in a 7.7 inch mode, like, just a landscape. And then you can unfold that. So remember, the screen on the outside folds up from the back, and now you have a tall 11.6 inch screen, but then you can undock it again, turn it sideways, put the controllers back on the side then, and then you have 11.6 inch tablet landscape again. Weird, kind of like, it definitely feels like a concept, because it's like, what are the use cases for all these things? And it's just weird that the screen cannot fold in to protect the thing when it's in the handheld mode. That only works when you have the laptop case to sort of have the laptop keyboard come up and protect the full screen. But I like these things. I'm interested. I bet this, when it comes out, if it's real, if it becomes a product, is like $2,000. I don't know. What do you think, John?
Yeah, I mean, for me, and especially having reinvested in like a DS sort of form with the A1 and Thor, again, hasn't shipping. I don't have it in my hands, but it's weird because it's like who's asking for this? Like, I think conceptually very interesting, very cool.
Right.
It's pretty customizable, but whenever I see those hinges on like those phones and these consoles, it's kind of hard to want to invest in that because you don't know how soon it's gonna break. I have siblings and stuff that I wouldn't trust them with this device.
It looks fragile.
And
yeah.
It does. And at the same time, it is a laptop adjacent product. And I love the Legion. I have the Lenovo Legion Slim or something
Okay.
for a previous job, and I really do like it. But I don't know if now is the right time to put this out where it is competing for people who do want that. So it's a very light laptop, what I have, and it's fantastic for the size. The performance is good. I don't know if it's worth taking memory away from a potential laptop sale than it would for this. Everyone's different. That's kind of just my take, but yeah, I don't know. As a gimmick, it's kind of interesting, but I don't know how well that would be, especially like the maneuvering around. Like, I feel like that's just going to be a lot more heavy than would be worth it. Like, I feel like I don't want to play games on an iPad sort of screen, even if it's like two iPads duct taped together.
Yeah, I mean, it looks obnoxious. It is, you're right. It's a bag of just like all gimmicks, which, to be fair, the original Lenovo Legion Go kind of was all the gimmicks as well. Like, it had the detachable controllers, and then like the Switch 2, long before the Switch 2, you could take the right Joy-Con for the Lenovo Legion Go off, and it had an optical sensor on the bottom. You could use it as a mouse, and then you could use the left one as like sort of a joypad to move characters around in first-person shooters. Had all these various like things you could do with it, and it's okay, cool. That's fine. I bet for the next one, they're going to start taking stuff out and really just get down to the meat of what makes this thing good and competitive, because that's what most people are going to want and use this thing for. And it's like, oh no, they went the opposite direction. Even more gimmicks on top of this. And it's, okay. This space is maturing in such a way where it's like, we know that these things are viable. People just want a strong, reliable daily driver. And this thing does not look like it's going for that. It is going for the very, very high end people who show up for boutique items. And I don't know. We're just not in that world right now because of the cost of things. And this looks like it's going to be very expensive. All right. Evercade announces a Super Pocket unit dedicated to rare classics. This is from Jonas Mackey at Game Reactor. If you like rare and retro games, Evercade now has something fun in store for you. They have developed a Super Pocket device with rare design and 14 built-in games, and it works with Evercade's other game collections. So Evercade is one of these retro game hardware and hardware manufacturers and game publishers. They have devices like little Game Boy-like things that could take cartridges, and then they put out Evercade cartridges that have collections of games. They also now have this one that they're doing with Rare. That is, hey, we're just putting out the Rare handheld. It has 14 of their games, which includes Banjo-Kazooie, Conker's Pocket Tales, Battletoads in Battle Maniacs, Battletoads, Cobra Triangle, RC Pro-Am 2, Slalom, Snake Rattle and Roll, Solar Jetman, Hunt for the Golden Warship, Attic Attack, Jetpack, Lunar Jetman, Night Lore, and Gunfright. Cool. This is neat. Do you think like we're going to see more of these things as older sort of retro publishers or studios that have a lot of games in their back catalog look for more ways to sort of put them back onto the market after they've sold us the ROMs on digital storefronts a million times?
Yeah. These Evercades are always very interesting because it seems like something you would find in a CVS, but it looks a lot cooler than that. It's always that thing that I really want, but can never justify the price of. I think for the people that are into it, they collect a ton of them. Like, I know one of my friends is super into these pocket devices, and they have like multiple Capcom collections. They have multiple Atari collections. So there's a market for this. I don't know how many people could really take advantage of this because, I mean, when you're reading through the list, actually, that's weird. It's Conker's Pocket Tales, which is cool because that hasn't been re-released as far as I know. But they are including Banjo-Kazooie, so like, how far does this actually go? Yeah. I just assumed it would be those.
That's the most recent game, right? I don't know. That's it's weird. Like, I want to see Banjo-Kazooie on this thing. It should probably be okay. I bet they like selected that one because whatever emulator they're using plays nice with that game. Because N64 emulation can be a little bit spotty sometimes, especially on a low-end device. There is early pricing for this, £49, €59. So that means it probably comes in around $60, $70. that's somewhat reasonable, but I mean, that's a little bit of a premium because you're right. The comparison point for this probably is something you would find in a CVS that has a bunch of like Data East games on it or something.
Right.
But Rare is going to command a little bit more respect, and Evercade does make higher quality stuff. So it's like add like $20 or $30 to those things, and here you go. You have this device. I like this stuff, but it's like, oh, I'm always going to end up getting the one where it's like, give me full control, put Android on there, put Linux, put whatever, put Steam OS, and let me just go into the desktop and download all my games. And I want full control. And Evercade is not really that device. But for like gifts and stuff like that, this is going to be a stocking stuffer for a lot of people, I think.
Yeah,
that's how much stocking stuffers cost now, $70. Yeah, go ahead.
Of course, because that's cheap. They actually did point out, chat point out, I think it was Kane Highwind. Is there an analog stick on the Evercade? How is Banjo going to work like that?
Interesting. Yeah, I'm going to see if what's the new. Let me Google this thing and take another look at it. Let's see, Evercade Rare Super Pocket. Yeah, I mean that's weird. I mean they're gonna have to remap the controls. Well, okay, so there's 4 shoulder buttons, so that will help with some of the stuff because there is no C stick either, and there's no C buttons, which is what would have been on this on the N64. So that's gonna be bizarre. And then there's a D-pad, although it's a big chunky D-pad. That won't be as much of a problem. They'll just map analog controls to that. And then maybe give you a toggle for like walking or something. But there's not a ton of buttons on this thing. I bet it's going to be not great. I bet Banjo-Kazooie's not going to be great on this.
Yeah, you're going to have to press that like center camera button that like all the N64 games kind of had, because on top of using the C-stick buttons, that's just how I orient stuff. And I still use that to this day. I've been playing through Control. I'm pressing that lockdown button. But yeah, that's interesting. There are a lot of big companies that support this thing. I think the people that already have this device are going to go crazy with it, because if you have this device, you're going to want to pick the stuff that looks good on a shelf and good to play.
Yep. All right. Last handful of stories here as we begin to run up close to the hour. Resident Evil Requiem almost cracks 350,000 concurrent players on Steam over launch weekend. It was at 344,214. Really good for Resident Evil Requiem, which is just, like we talked about earlier, a delightful game. Very, very good. That crushes for the series. I think the previous high, let's see here. For reference, the next best performing game in the series on Valve's platform is the recent remake of Resident Evil 4, which topped out at 168,191 players at one moment. So that's the highest peak concurrent player count for that game. Resident Evil's been putting in the work to get people excited about it and excited about a new one. And it just feels like, it all culminated here with what is, in my opinion, the best game in the franchise since Resident Evil 4, like the original one. That's a big number. What do you think?
I think that's freaking awesome. Like, I'm so glad more people are playing these kinds of games. And I don't know, they kind of just hit a new peak with Requiem. Like that, the freedom to choose between what style of game you like, it's kind of the best of both worlds, and they really are only gotten better. It's a game I wish I could play right now, but man, I don't know, work and everything's so busy lately. There's so much to do and so little time, but that game is just incredible.
And then Resident Evil Requiem is a hit with people as well. I mean, people are playing it, but as someone in chat just pointed out, I did see this. The user score on Metacritic is extraordinarily high. For reference, it is above Disney Cory in the House, which is a meme game that people give a perfect score to, and that's number 3 now. Number 2 is Resident Evil Requiem, which has a 9.5 user score, which puts it right next to Clair Obscur Expedition 33, which also has a 9.5. My understanding is it's like going back and forth between those two. Like occasionally it's been number 1. That's the kind of thing that's happening with this game, where it's out, it's here, people are playing it and immediately being like, this rules. Capcom's, it's beyond just hitting their stride, right? They're at like a new peak. This is like a new golden era for Capcom.
Yeah, it's just dope. Like that game feels so much better. And in a fun way, I think it will make developers a little bit more creative to have those two different viewpoints on how to tackle a problem. It's so fascinating the way that game, the interconnectedness of that game works. And I'm only like an hour and a half in. I'm just very, very happy that single player games are crushing it right now.
Yep. Like I said, whenever we like our review thing, I think the worst thing you'd say about it is it leaves you wanting so much more. And 10 hours for the first playthrough, but like I said, I keep replaying it. And the fact that it's like 10 hours on the first playthrough actually makes it even better for the replays, because you can just I can get through this thing really quickly. I'm just going to go again. Ooh, good stuff. Nacon is delayed this week's Connect showcase to May 2026. Short version is they were planning one for February 23rd, and then, or on February 23rd, excuse me, they announced one for March 4th. And then since then, they've declared insolvency, basically bankruptcy. And everyone's like, wait, what? What's happening there? And they're like, okay, yeah, we're going to delay it till May while we figure out what the future holds. They're also losing some publishing deals. I think declaring insolvency is likely made some contracts expire. So they probably have to sort some of that stuff out as well. And then finally, Pokemon FireRed and LeafGreen players are accidentally losing hours of progress. Excuse me, this comes from Kenneth Shepard at Kotaku. These are older games that were on, and it's just the ROMs. So they were made for devices that did not have a lot of UI. They didn't have a base operating system that you could go into by hitting the home button. There was no home button. So the developers built in a way to reset the game by doing a button combo, and I think it's all 4 face buttons. I think. So yeah, or maybe ABXY, or maybe it's AB start select. I guess that would have been what it was back on the
on GBA,
on the GBA, GBA. And it's people are accidentally doing this, and an hour and a half in, losing all of their progress. Okay, it's ABXY says resets the game. Yeah, that's pretty easy to hit ABXY. It should not be that. It should be something more complicated than ABXY. But a lot of people are learning the very hard way that this is in there. I've seen a lot of clips so far of just people looking crestfallen. It's rough stuff. Hopefully they just update this, right?
Yeah, it's interesting because for me, that's a positive. I am a sicko that was re-rolling my starter trying to get a shiny Pokemon to run the game like that. But yeah, it should absolutely be a toggle. There should be some kind of virtual console-esque menu that pulls it up, because it is unfortunate that a lot of people are losing progress. But I don't know. I learned the hard way. But on the same time, I'm pretty fidgety. And in a turn-based RPG, I will just be hitting buttons just to hit buttons. And so I empathize with a lot of people. Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah, imagine you finally just got that shiny and you get excited and hit the buttons and it resets. Oof, that'd be rough stuff. All right, that does it for the headlines. There was no poll question because last Friday was the Bomb 12. We have the updated Bomb 12 up on the site. I think if you go to the vote now, did I not? I did update that, but I put the wrong month. It says February 6th, but I said sex. I said February 6th, John.
Nice.
Oh, no.
Yeah, the month of love.
The month of love. It should say March 6th, everybody. That's when we'll get the next Bomb 12. Go ahead and submit your game. We'll get the results, talk about it at the end of the week. In the meantime, though, we have plenty of stuff happening on Giant Bomb for the rest of the week. Looking forward to hanging out with you. We'll see about doing some myths today, some other fun stuff. I want to play Pokopia, Jan. Jan, how is Pokopia?
I love it. I think it is the best Pokemon game to come out in quite a while. And also, the Pokemon Company should keep giving other companies besides Game Freak Pokemon.
Yeah. I mean, this feels like, if you've fallen off Pokemon, but you still really like those characters, this feels like a really great way of catching those people and giving them an alternative way to continue to enjoy it. I'm excited. It seems like it should be a lot of fun. I want to see what it's really like with 4 players all at once.
Gimmicks would love the shit out of it.
I can't wait. Like I said, Emmy's more and more into Pokemon all the time, mostly the characters. So yeah, we'll play this together. That sounds like a very good time. All right. Like I said, we'll have the Giant Bomb stuff popping off all week. Just go to giantbomb.com to keep up with us, everybody. In the meantime, Jon Martin, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Oh, wait, why don't you tell people where they can find you on the internet? I haven't done that yet. Go ahead and tell people about all that good stuff.
Yeah, you can find me on Blue Sky, johnmartin.bluesky.social. I am after this, I'm probably going to pin a couple of videos that have come out in the last couple of weeks. A lot of podcasts about backlog games, beating backlogs. I am currently exporting a video as we speak, and that's going well. So yeah, I have good stuff coming up, and yeah, you can see that on Blue Sky. But yeah, man, I really appreciate it. You guys have been killing it lately. I look forward to all the premium content. It is fantastic, and really good to smile and laugh in pretty difficult times.
Thanks, man, and we appreciate that. We like doing it. We're glad to hear that people like it, and thank you for being on, and thank you for spending today with me talking about video games, man. I really appreciate it.
Anytime, Jeff. I love it.
Thank you all for watching and listening. You are the best audience in gaming. Until next time, have a good one. Take care of yourself, and goodbye.